This is genius.
This is Joe Rogan, and you're listening to The Gritty Bowman.
I've never seen so many mullets in my life.
No, it's just about feeling good.
You had more chins than a Chinese phone book for a while.
Man.
Yeah, it was bad. Yeah. I mean, he's right. He said, Goonies never say die. We're going.
We got this.
All right.
I was pulling the trigger, but the safety was on.
I just Randy Black Eagle.
That's it. Boom.
That's my.
That's how we roll. Just drop the mic and walk away.
On this episode of Gritty Bowman, we hang out with our friend Cory Miller, owner of xXx Archery, at his bow shop in Rainier, Oregon. We talked to Cory about compound bow tuning. This podcast has some visual footage that you will want to watch if this stuff is new to you. At the very end of this podcast, we inserted some video footage of Cory teaching my cousin Ben how to properly grip and hold a compound bow when shooting. In Cory's experience as a tournament bow shooter for PSE and an archery shop owner, improper grip is one of the most common mistakes that he sees in archery shooters. Check out the video at the end of this podcast for a brief lesson from Cory on how the grip should be done. If you live in the area, check out xXx Archery. It's worth the drive. And now, Cory has a super cool Techno shoot that's a blast to play with. Go to our website at grittybowman.com or to our YouTube channel to see a video of Cousin Ben and the Gritty Scotsman go head-to-head in a Techno shootout. It's good, gritty fun.
All right, folks, welcome to the Gritty Bowman podcast. We are here in the hoppin', bumpin' town of Mount Rainier.
Not Mount Rainier.
Just Rainier.
Just Rainier.
Yeah, I knew that. I meant Rainier, but I just kept thinking.
Oregon, though.
Yeah, in Oregon.
Yes, because there is a Rainier, Washington, too.
Rainier, Oregon, at the xXx Archery shop with Cory Miller. And tonight, we are going to talk a little bit about how to set up a bow and how to tune it. Yep. We get a lot of those kind of questions, so we're just going to break it down. For some of you more advanced people, it might be a little below your level, but for a lot of people, this is going to be new, kind of right at the beginner, intermediate level. Mm-hmm. All right, Cory. Guy comes along, he wants to set up a new bow.
On that, usually what we need to do is we need to find a bow. Find the right bow that's going to fit his setup for what he's wanting to do.
Yeah.
Whether or not he's a new archer, an experienced archer. So we do a little bit of investigating. Is this your first bow or not? If it's not, then what I always like to know is, what do you shoot now? What do you like? What don't you like? What do you want in the new bow? Mm-hmm. And then we start building off of that, and then let the guy shoot. Let's
say he shot a bunch. He went through that whole bow purchasing process, mm-hmm. and he ended up picking out something. And now, he's got his rest on there. He's putting his sight on there, and he's got his peep tied in, all that kind of stuff. And he starts shooting, but he doesn't know if it's tuned.
Tuned, yeah. So basically, what a lot of guys like to do is paper tune. So what paper tuning will do is it will allow us to know what the arrow is doing as it's leaving the bow, whether or not it's tailing left or right or porpoising up and down. And there's a few things that cause that. And actually, there's probably a few more things that can cause that. Can be the setup.
Yep.
Can be the arrow. Can be the grip. Can be a combination of everything. When we go through and we shoot through paper, what it's going to do is it's going to tell us what it's doing and then gives us some options on how to correct that. Now, some bows have more options than other bows. So taking like a true binary cam like an Elite, some of the Bowtechs, Primes, where we don't have a yoke system. We just have the strings all go to the cams.
And by yoke, you're talking about it's when the cable's split at the top.
That's your yoke split. Some people call it a bus cable, a Y cable. Mm-hmm. So with that Y cable or split cable, bus cable, we can control what the cams and the
tilt of the cam a little bit.
Mm-hmm. So when we don't have that, we're kind of left at the mercy of moving the arrow rest in and out.
Okay. So which manufacturers make bows with a yoke and which ones don't?
Typical.
Just name a few
Hoyt,
popular.
Hoyt, PSE, Bowtech, Matthews.
They all have a split.
A split. So any of your
cable
cam and a
with the
half
yoke.
systems, 2-cam bows will have yoke systems. Your true binary cams, such as like on a Bowtech, the Carbon Icon is a true binary. The Elites are a true binary.
Yep.
Prime is a true binary. So there's a few other companies that do binary, but a lot of companies will do either cam and a half systems now or a binary system.
Okay.
So by having that yoke system, we have that ability to not just move the rest, but control the cam lean.
Yeah, because I know, like on my old Bowtech, when you put that, is the first time I had one with a yoke. Right. In the past, it was what do you call it? A single.
It's a single cam.
Single cam. Well,
a binary.
A binary. Okay. So when I was shooting that setup, I would adjust my rest and my knock and all that to sort of try to tune the bow so that I could get arrows flying through paper without any tears.
Yep.
Later, I go and made up a number of years ago, and they're like, yeah, don't move the rest. Don't move the knock. We measured it. Everything's set up right there. It's all at the right height. Everything's perfect. But then it wasn't shooting through paper.
Yeah.
So the first thing I did when I got home was start moving
the rest.
And I started moving the knock and all that, trying to do it the way that I used to do it, not realizing that I should have been adjusting the yoke cables instead.
And as a homeowner user, most people don't have a press to press the bow and start changing, twisting yokes and doing stuff like that. So the big thing about moving the rest is there's a kind of a small window of where that rest needs to be. And we've seen a lot of times where guys, that's all they do is move the rest, and they move it so far out that it shoots a bullet hole.
Yep.
But they're crooked in the bow.
I remember doing that one time. I mean, you could look at it, and the arrow was staring off in one direction, but I could get it to shoot a bullet hole now.
A good telltale sign that something's not right is when your sight won't go out far enough. There's something wrong.
What do you mean when the sight won't go out far enough?
So you got it shooting a bullet hole, and you're like, oh, and I go to shoot 20 yards, and my arrow's way off to the left, and I move my sight out to the left, move my sight out, and I can't move it any further, and I'm still shooting to the left. All these manufacturers know how much windage they need to put on a bow or on a sight. And so if you're running out, something's not right.
Yeah, if you've bottomed out or gone too far left or right with your sight, and you've maxed your sight out as far as its adjustability, you're definitely something's not right. Even though
it shoots a bullet hole.
It shoots a bullet hole.
Yeah. So a lot of people.
And what's the idea with the bullet hole? I mean, most people know, but
it means that technically it means that the arrow is coming out of the bow perfectly straight, and
so the entry and where the tip enters and where the knock goes through, it's the same hole.
Yep.
They
went right through each other.
They're not going through at an angle or crooked or anything else.
And we'll be able to kind of show you what those tears look like for
we'll shoot a bow here pretty soon, and you can see.
And we'll demonstrate of what that arrow's doing coming out of the bow. Now, getting real technical, some people, don't care about the bullet holes. I've shot some unbelievable scores and shot some really good tournaments with arrows that aren't flying all that great. And typically I'll come in and I'll shoot them through paper, and they're usually a 10 o'clock tear. Now, that is a little different when we start shooting broadheads and stuff, because we're putting basically fletchings on the front of that shaft. So we don't really want to see we want to see the least amount of movement out of that shaft coming out, because once that thing starts out and we've got a blade in the front, it's going to overcorrect.
That's what I was going to say is in my past experience, when I did adjust everything right, so I got that bullet hole, then when I threw on broadheads, I had fairly consistent flight with that whole setup. Later, I just couldn't get a bow to tune. I mean, I had this Bowtech Allegiance, and I couldn't get it to tune. And I just played with it, and couldn't get it to couldn't tune it.
Yeah.
Yet it shot great. It felt great. I could, I was hitting the target well, but and so I was like, well, it's not paper tuning, but I'm nailing this thing out to 80 yards consistently with good groups. Then I put a Broadhead on, and I wanted to cry.
Yeah.
That's when it really counted.
Yeah. And, on a system like that, sometimes you're just left at the mercy of saying, this is as good as it's going to get. We can try to get the broadheads to shoot as consistent as possible, but we have to move the sight. And that could just be to the way you grip that bow.
Yep.
And because the way you're putting your hand into that bow, we can't correct the cam lean to fit your style sometimes. Yeah. So
that was back in the day too, when I really didn't shoot well. So that plays a big part of it too.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is. It's the grip. Teaching somebody how to grip a bow properly is probably my most difficult thing.
And we have some video of that, which I'll plug in here as well, where you kind of show how to hold a bow and how to grip it, how to draw it. And a lot of people, I see them do it, and that's one of the first things I see. That, they get their hands on a bow and they think of it as like a pistol, or a gun, and they grab the bow, and it's really quite different. So
and they go and call it a grip, and so they grip it. So
yeah,
it's a handle.
And so we'll throw that video in here too, and augment this with it. So we won't get into that right now, but basically, how you hold the bow, your shooting form, period, is you want to remove as much human error that's causing errant arrow flight, bad arrow flight. You want to do as much as you can with your form, and after that, we're talking just isolating the bow right now.
So we're so with a lot of the bows now, we can yoke tune them. To
and
get
by
that
yoke, you're talking about that split on the cable, shortening one, making it longer, and it just tilts the.
And what's crazy is that, and we'll show you. Typically, you can take your bow and lay an arrow right down the cam right along your shooting string, and you'll see whether or not you have cam lean.
Yeah.
Now, some bows need cam lean, and some bows don't. And I've seen the same bow in different draw lengths need different amounts of cam lean or no cam lean. So, just to say it's that simple if we just put a straight edge on here and we just get everything down the middle, it's going to be
doesn't quite work.
No.
In real life, you're adjusting it just a little bit,
and it
Sometimes
doesn't take
it might
much
lean
on
a
that.
Bit.
Yeah, it doesn't take much. There again, there's a window too that we don't want to see. When you draw the bow and you're looking at the cam, just leaning over, you're going, "Is that thing going to
pop off?"
Yeah, it's probably too much. And go back to there's something else causing this problem.
So which is better? One with a yoke or one without a yoke?
Depends on who you talk to. I kind of look at it in different ways. If you don't have a yoke, you don't have the ability to change things. Well, if I don't have the ability to change things, then the bow really doesn't have the ability to change things either. So when we talk about bows going out of time or out of tune, if a cam is a slave to itself and we don't have any way of controlling cam lean, it's not going to then start leaning more or less. So they don't.
This is what it is.
It is what it is. So that
so you can compensate a little bit by moving the
it's kind of nice that
around
it
and the
can't go wrong, but it's kind of sometimes frustrating because we can't tweak it. So it depends on the person. So some people really like to tinker and tweak with things, and so that system baffles them because they're like, well, I can't really
which system
do anything. A binary system, a true binary. They're like, well, I can't do
anything to do with it.
I can't really advance.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
But
and a cam and a half system, a lot of guys, so we can get some up and down tears too, and that's due to cam synchronization, timing. So when on a binary cam, those cams are really slave to each other, so they don't really necessarily go out of time. And so on cam and a half systems, two cam systems, Sometimes we need to advance the top cam or advance the bottom cam to make the knock travel come out and work. But because we can change that, it can change itself too. So sometimes, like I say, it's nice if you're a tinker, but sometimes it's not nice because it can change. And so it depends on you. There's ways of, once you get that bow, how you can take a paint pen and run lines right down your cams, right along your limb. And so all of a sudden you're saying, man, some things are kind of shooting weird. I can look at my cam and go, well, this cam's rotated over, so I need to go back and put a twist in this cable or that cable to get things back into sync. So I don't know. I'm not going to say one's better than the other.
Oh, come on, dude.
It just I prefer the cam that I shoot,
which is
a PSE. I think it's kind of it's got a yoke on it.
Yep.
But we have one module on the bottom, so it's kind of like a glorified solo cam and a half. It's kind of got the best of everything. We got a smooth draw cycle of like a solo cam was, but we get speeds of a cam and a half or a 2-cam bow, but we still get the tunability of a cam and a half. But we almost get the timing issue of a solo cam or a binary cam because they're very forgiving on, not like a true cam and a half where we have two stops that have to come around and touch the same
at the same time.
And so it's a very forgiving system, an easy bow to tune and do stuff with. But I also like working with Bowtech's new binary overdrive systems because we have a yoke on both top and bottom, and so I can do anything I ever wanted to that cam. We still can adjust timing. You have to do quite a bit before it does get out, but we can advance a top cam or a bottom cam, and then we can control the cam lean.
So when you're shooting a bow or when you're getting one tuned, if a guy comes in and he starts shooting through paper and he's got a tear, what does he do then?
Well, depends on what the tear is. Typically, the most common tear for a right-handed shooter is going to be a right tear, where the tip is entering the paper first and the fletching is going to be to the right. So the tail end of the arrow is coming out to the right side. So number one thing we want to look at is our center shot of our arrow rest. A lot of times you can stand right down and look down on the bow with an arrow in it, and it should be right down the limbs, down the middle. You can look from the back end of the bow and line the string up in the arrow and just kind of eyeball everything and go, that looks like centered. It looks pretty centered. If you notice things are looking kind of cattywampus, looking down and it's like, boy, that arrow's pointing inside a little bit, that's typically what it's going to be, is that arrow's going to be pointing to the right, even though we get a right tear. So a right tear is going to tell us we need to move that arrow rest out. If the center shot looks good and is good, and we've kind of you can sometimes do a walk back tune where you shoot 3 yards and go back to 20 or 30 yards and shoot it again on a line. Yeah. And those are hitting the same path. It's not veering one direction or another. It tells us our center shot's pretty dang good. And we're still getting a right tear, then what we're going to do is, if we can, we're going to yoke tune it. So if we can't, if it's a true binary, we're just going to try to keep moving that arrow rest out to see if we can get that tear to come in. And like I say, there's a small window. Once you go past that threshold, you just got to say it's got to come back. And now we start looking at, is it an arrow? Is it too weak, too stiff of a shaft? Is it a grip issue? Is it a draw length issue where the string is coming back into our face and we're getting string roll as it's rolling off of our face? So there's a lot of things.
All this stuff's just making me like want to take it to a guy and say, fix it.
Come into play.
I'm trying to get into the whole, mess with it myself a lot more thing, but I got to admit, it just sort of, it doesn't interest me that much.
Yeah. And it's the thing.
I just want to shoot it.
Yeah. It's pretty easy, I guess, after you do it for a while, but I don't know.
So should we go ahead and
sure.
shoot one?
Yeah. I've got one that I'm just setting up. Got a D-loop on it, got a rest on there. So we can kind of going to go over there and grab that bow, shoot it through the paper, and take a look and see what we're looking at on this, and then fix that, and then we can shoot another bow or two through there and kind of
see what it looks like when you're shooting. When you're shooting it, and so, but basically, you're using the paper to determine what kind of adjustments to make on the bow. I remember being on the internet and Google and stuff, and having different guys put up articles where they say, okay, if your tear looks like this, typically this is what you need, the adjustment you need to make on your bow, and this is what you need to make if the tear looks like this, and that sort of thing. I copied a lot of that stuff. It never really worked well for me.
Well, the number one rule on that is if it tells you to move it to the left, and you move it to the left and it doesn't fix it, move it to the right. So, and if it doesn't fix it, then put it back in the middle. So.
That's kind of how I did it. I'd shoot through paper and adjust it. Did it get better? Did it get worse?
Yeah.
And just keep messing around with it.
And there are some problem child bows, and I just had one. I've had a couple recently. It's weird. I mean, two bows, identical bows, and pretty much identical rests. And we could not get one to tune, and the other one just bullet hole, and it was really weird. I mean, we moved the rest in, out, retarded the cam, advanced the cams. We did everything to it, and it would always do the same thing.
Yeah,
and that tells me there's something going on with the bow, and it's deeper than what we can fix here. And so sometimes we do have to send a bow back to the factory and let them put them on their machines and laser, make sure the limb pockets are straight, and doing some other stuff to the bow, and make sure the riser's not bent. There's some weird things that can happen. But
so it's a lot of this, doesn't seem to be that applicable to guys who are, really shooting. If you're shooting a mechanical broadhead that's low profile, you're going to get some pretty decent flight, even though you're not paper tuning perfectly.
Yeah.
Because it seems like there's less demand for a bow that shoots spot on than there used to be. Like in terms of and maybe I'm wrong, but it seems like with only a few states requiring a fixed blade broadhead.
For us, I still get it, because everybody's like, well, I want something that's tunable, because we all know that we still have to shoot a fixed
in
head.
Oregon, you still have to. But all these other guys, they're like, close enough is close enough.
Yeah.
They're dead on at 70 yards with a paper tear.
Yeah. And it would be nice to be able to shoot mechanicals someday.
But so I just wondered, all that said, I know we're going for most of the bow companies want precision. And it seems like with some of these split cables, there's been some of that greater adjustability. I know when I brought my bow in, you did a couple of twists, and I was drilling with paper with bullet holes. Yeah. It really was effortless.
They're typically pretty easy, but like I say, I try to do my tuning before or after work, because it can get into some of those problem childs where I'm in the range, shoot it, come back in here, put in the press, go back out there, shoot it, and it's just back and forth. Sometimes it's really quick, and also arrow is huge.
Right.
I've had a few.
That's what I found.
The guy gives me an arrow, and I'm sitting there shooting, and I'm like, man, this thing's just all over the board, and I'm chasing a bad arrow. Yeah. And I'll go grab a different arrow and boom, bullet hole, just where I thought things should have been lined up, and shooting a bullet hole.
We talked about that in your earlier podcast about arrows, that you definitely want to try to rule that out. So how does a guy do that? Because you're sitting there and you're frustrated because you're not hitting a bullet hole. Maybe your bow is tuned great, and it's your arrow.
Yeah, you could be tuning all to the bad arrow, tuning the bow to make the bad arrow shoot, and then you grab your good arrows, and now they're shooting bad. And so, it just depends on how deep you want to get into doing your stuff. There's guys that will shoot every arrow through the paper to make sure that every arrow is shooting the exact same. I usually don't.
Yeah, I used to just say, hey, if I can get a good group at 50 yards, I was happy.
Yeah, I can
But
usually
once
identify an
once I
arrow.
put, there was that one time when I put broadheads on, and to my extreme dismay, couldn't get them to fly. And in the end, it wasn't my bow that was out of tune. It was the arrows.
Yeah, and then that even goes back into broadheads too. So you could take a great arrow, a great tuned bow, and buy a really cheap built broadhead,
Or just one that doesn't work well.
Well, yeah, because it's crooked, and that's going to make the arrow go. So,
A lot of variables.
yeah,
It's hard to say.
So just because we get a bow to shoot through paper doesn't mean it's fixed, and it's just a miracle thing. It's a good starting point. It's a good confidence builder for some people. They're like, oh man, my bow shoots bullet holes, and they believe in the bow, and so they're going to hold it and they're going to shoot it better. They're not wondering in the back of their mind, is this thing, is it me or is it the bow?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. All right. Let's shoot some through paper.
okay.
See what you got.
Okay, so we just got her bow, picked out the arrow, know what draw length and poundage she's shooting. So we're going to go ahead and shoot this thing through the paper, see what it's doing. And we're getting a left tear. So what this is telling me that we should put some cameling into or twist up the left side of this yoke.
Yep.
But I'm going to check it, and looking at this, we look really good as far as cameling. So I'm not going to do that. What I do want to do is I want to check the center shot of this bow. And so I'm going to go ahead and lift that rest up so I can see it. If you look kind of right down that, you can see this arrow rest is pointing out.
Yep.
So, in which this tear is telling us that we need to bring the rest in. And so our cameling looks good, but it looks like our center shot is off.
Okay.
We're going to go ahead and line that up.
There we go. So there we have a bullet hole. You can see where the center is and the fletchings, where the 3 fletchings poke through.
So on this one here,
I see.
The tip is here.
Tip is here,
And the knock is over here.
That's
So
where the
let me
fletchings
just-
tear. You can see the tear. I can't see it through the camera, but there we go. So the entry is on the right, that with the tip, and the entry from the back end of the arrows on the left. And there's a good bullet hole. Okay.
So once I got that shooting a good bullet hole up there, I like to shoot it through at another distance just to make sure that we're not getting a false reading and just happen to go through the paper really good right there. So I'm going to go ahead and shoot another one from back here. And another good bullet hole. I'm going to go shoot that one.
Sweet.
What's that?
I said good. So we got a good bullet hole up
So-
front, and we got a good bullet hole from further away. And
Yep.
now you're pretty confident that the bow is tuned properly.
This bow is tuned good and shooting good. Just to kind of show you about what we're talking about on cam lean, this bow here doesn't have any. As you can see, I can lay this arrow right up here, and it's running right down that string.
The arrow runs right down the string.
Yeah. So actually, let me grab another bow that hasn't been tuned out yet. I'm going to lay that on there. Now you can see down here how much that arrow was coming out to the left. So in order to correct that,
It's not up against the string.
it's
because
not up
there's
against the
some tilt
string. So what I would
in the
do
cam.
is I would actually put a couple twists into this right side of this yoke, which is going to twist this cam over. So if we were to tighten this cable, it's going to bring, as you watch me bend that cable, it brings that arrow in line.
Yep.
So, and if I put the twist onto this side, it's going to grow.
To make that arrow come out further from the
So,
alignment.
like I say, I've had some bows tune right here, and then other bows will tune right here. And it just kind of depends on that bow, that cam system, that draw length, that arrow, the way we grip into a bow sometimes can change all that. So it's nice to have that ability.
You got some great legs, Cory.
Oh, thank you. They're nice and white, except for those knees.
Now that's kind of just a summary on a paper tuning, how that's done, how we talked a little bit about a cam that's tilted, how to adjust that, but basically the goal is to get a good bullet hole going through some paper, and there's just different things you need to be concerned with, like we discussed, shot, how you're shooting the bow, your form, all remove human flaws, tweaking the bow on the shot. We're talking about making sure everything's in alignment, the timing's good, and everything with your bow, and that the arrows are matched to your bow. There's a lot of variables in here. So what if a guy, what do you think about a guy who's like, yeah, I want to do this all on my own, versus, a guy that wants to come into the shop and get some help? I mean, what do you recommend? Because it's going to cost a bit of money, right, for a bow press.
Yeah, I mean, with the bows today, it's not like it used to be where you could go buy or build your own bow press fairly cheap, because we used a lot of just boat winches and some straps and pulled them down. Now you can buy a portable press. They're a little more difficult to use sometimes, but because of the way the limbs are on the bows nowadays, you actually have to press them from the limb tips in, and so the old style presses will just break the limbs, and they're not good. So you're gonna spend some money, and I don't ever want to discourage anybody from wanting to work on their own bow or learning, because it's take ownership in your stuff. It is nice, but at some point you got to look at it and say, is it really worth me spending $1,000 worth of tools and equipment to be doing a couple twists here and there? And it also depends on how far away you are from a pro shop.
Yeah.
And your pro shop. I say we've been really lucky here in the Northwest. We've got a lot of good shops out here. So
got the bow rack, got you guys.
The bow rack, Archery World. He's got 2 locations. There's
Broken Arrow.
I got a real good friend up in Mount Vernon.
Yeah. So
Riverside.
Typically, a guy comes into a shop. I've seen, and I've done the same thing where I'm like, okay, I'm shooting through paper. I'm tearing a little bit this way. I want you to put a twist in this cable like this, and the guy will just the guy at the shop can do that for you. So you can have a little more involvement in the process than just hand it to him and go fix it.
Yeah, and still, like I say, I mean, we the big thing is you should be able to physically look at the bow and go, that looks straight.
Yeah.
The bows are, other than some of the carbon bows, but they're all machined risers. They're machined straight. The strings are straight. The cams are straight. So there shouldn't be an arrow pointing.
Shouldn't be cockeyed in any way. Yeah.
It shouldn't be extremely knock high. Knock high, up and down tears can be arrow rest, but it can also be a lot of times cam timing or synchronization that's causing that knock travel. Some bows have more, so they're gonna run a little knock high.
For the most part, it seems like typically with most of the new bows today that you can get it set up with your sight, your knock, and everything. There's some general guidelines, and then once you start shooting with that, it's generally pretty spot on. Yeah. It's rare, I think, that it's hard to tune stuff.
Yeah, I can usually put a bow on the vise, stand right behind it, look at it, move that arrow rest left and right,
boom,
lock it down, and then do my knock height, and usually it's 1 or 2 arrows and that thing's shooting a bullet. They are a lot easier to deal with nowadays. But,
well, dude, I think we covered it. I think this is a good just give some guys that are pretty new into archery some ideas of what they're looking for.
Yeah.
How you tune, how a bow gets tuned. There's a lot of other podcasts that go into way more detail and and get technical. So, but maybe this is going to help some guys so that when they listen to those podcasts, now they know what they're talking about.
Yeah, about what knock tuning, yoke tuning, what all those different things are.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a ton of stuff that we can talk about, but a lot of it honestly goes over the heads of a lot of people, and it's just it kind of gets geeky. It's kind of like me listening to some people talk about computers. It's like,
Yeah.
I just want to hit the play button.
Yeah.
Make it work.
So I noticed you've got a new Techno shoot.
Yeah. I'm excited about that.
We shot at that Techno shoot last. Mark and I have been in here a couple of times. Came in here with cousin Ben, and you had some dead spots on it last time.
Wasn't working.
So even though you hit a kill shot, it would be like
confused.
Sorry, no points.
But it always read every time you hit one in the butt.
You did every time.
It
There was like a dead spot, like somewhere on the mat when you shoot it. So the Techno shoot basically is how far is that?
It's a 20-yard.
20-yard shot, and it mimics. It's just like a movie screen, and the animals are moving around, and you've got it simulates the real life thing, and you're at full draw, and you
shoot your bow, shoot your arrows. We just put a blunt tip on the tip of the arrow. The screen's got all kinds of sensors down there.
And we did that with Brownlee and Ben, and it was hilarious because they had a little contest going. And it alternates. Brownlee shoots, and then Ben shoots, and Brownlee shoots, and Ben shoots, and it's a contest between the two. And you don't know, if you've never done the shoot before, whether the animal, when they're kind of quartering to you, whether they're going to turn broadside or climb a hill or go behind a tree. You don't know when to take the shot.
Yeah, there's some shots where you're like, oh, it's going to get better,
and then it doesn't.
It doesn't.
Yep.
And so you take a 0 or you rush the shot and make a bad one. It's a great tool for beginning hunters, in my opinion, because they will be able to watch and what they're looking for.
Wasn't it hilarious when you watched Brownlee do it for the first time?
He was. He got all worked up, and I'm like,
and I think
not
new
real.
archers do,
it's not real.
But still, you get like, oh my gosh,
he could hardly get his release on. He was he was getting all flustered and because he was gonna miss the opportunity.
But it does get in your head, it is kind of a real deal. And so, especially when you get competitive with a buddy, there's more on the line. There's ego you got to manage.
Yeah. So this one's got all kinds of new scenes that the other one didn't have.
I noticed, and some small targets,
They got some small targets. And even like on an elk or a buffalo and stuff, they'll have some different footage that the thing looks like it's 40 or 50 yards away, and then other ones will look like they're 10 to 20 yards away. But we're still shooting with our 20-yard pin the whole time, but the target itself gets smaller.
Right. Like the buffalo, it looks like a poke. It's out there a ways, and you're like, because it makes it feel like it's an 80-yard shot.
There's
and the target's smaller because just like it would be on the real animal.
There was a fly, a praying mantis, which is like a stick, out there, and I missed that one. There's some really
obscure targets,
tough one that are like, what? It's got a kind of a cool tic-tac-toe game, and that one's kind of neat because you can steal the guy's space. So it has rings, like 10 rings, and so if you just shoot and you say you hit the 7 ring, and I could go, man, if I get it inside that 7 ring, then I get his square. And so, but if you shoot the little teeny X, nobody can take that from you.
You own the square.
Yeah, so you can kind of battle and take some spots from some people, or you can just shoot really good and block them out. And so
that's cool.
That's going to be fun. So hopefully we'll be getting the league going. I'm just doing a lot of testing right now as far as how much time, how many shots are we going to want to do. Kind of trying to look at all the different scenes and how we want to do it. And we'll probably get some leagues and stuff going here really pretty quick.
If a guy wants to come down here and do it, what does it cost?
I'm doing $12 for the half hour, $24 for the hour, and I know some other shops kind of do some different things, and it's just all on how much people are using it. But for me, for right now, the nice thing is that you can get the room. It gets a little crowded after about 4 guys in there, so you can technically, I think, get up to 6 shooters, but it's nice 2 to 3, 4 people in there.
Yeah.
And so you just split the cost. So if you come in with some friends, then it's not that
A
expensive.
couple of guys, like $6 for a half hour.
Yeah, 2 guys for a half hour,
$4
$6, and
for 3.
and they'll get it all shooting in. It's a lot faster paced than the other one too. So
Yeah.
there's not a waiting around.
Well, it pops up your score,
Yeah.
or it rubs in that you missed.
Yeah, Jason Phelps was down the other day, and we it gives you so much time to go down and collect your arrows. Well, I was the first shooter, and not knowing the system, I bumped that time to like 25 seconds or 20 seconds.
Mhm.
So it meant we only had 20 some seconds to walk 20 yards, pick up all our arrows off the ground, walk back, and it was like, get ready. And I'm like, I'm trying to hurry up. And so, yeah, so he put me in panic mode, and so he was able to tie me.
Ooh.
He couldn't beat me, but he tied
Ooh.
me. But it was only
Wow.
because of that.
It is a
So-
20-yard distance, though.
Yeah, so even he can shoot 20 yards. But yeah, he came down and picked up his new bow. We just
That's awesome.
got that tuned up and ready for him. And
Well, cool, man. Thanks for doing this with me.
Not a problem.
We've had a few people ask since the Arrow podcast about this, and I think that's just a high-level summary of it, and we can see, if people want a few more, if they have deeper questions, we could go into some specifics, but overall, this is about as deep as I want to go.
yeah, I mean, like we could spend hours and hours on things that it can cause and what causes this and what causes that, and and it's hard to really do on video. Really, to
Well, and
describe a lot of those things about the form and the
That's why I
technique.
think going to a good bow shop with somebody who knows what they're doing is so important, because you can take a look at somebody and go, you know what, your draw arm is like crooked, and the way you're gripping the thing every time you shoot, you're tweaking the shot, and you can rule out based on watching the guy shoot whether it's his shooting, get on to the next, whether it's an arrow or whether it's shooting through paper properly because of the tune. You as having done this so much, can take a look at that. A guy that's brand new, I know that when I went to like a Cabela's or a big box place and they didn't have someone there that really knew what they were doing, or even some shops where it seemed like they were just so busy I couldn't get any attention. That I struggled getting anybody to help me tune it, and I got told more than once, this is the best we can do, man.
Yeah.
This is it. Well, that's frustrating when you're ripping paper and they're like, it is what it is.
Yeah, and typically it's not that. I mean, it boils down to you got to take some time, and time for a lot of shops is money, and that's why I like to try to tune
in the mornings.
Yeah, I
evenings.
Drop your bow off here. I'll do it tonight. If I can get out of here at a decent time, I'll do it tonight. If not, I'll do it first thing in the morning before I get busy, because it can be difficult. But sometimes it's super easy, just like what we had on that bow. There was just a slight movement of that rest, and boom, shoots a bullet hole.
Cool.
But yeah,
all right, man. Well, stay gritty.
Stay gritty.
Okay, so we're going to go over a grip. This is probably the biggest problem that we see in archery, and it's probably the hardest thing for me to get guys to switch. Typically, a guy who's going to grip into the bow like they're hanging onto a pistol or something, they get into the pad and they like to take that wrist and bring it out. What we want is more like doing a push-up. Having that heel, where we want all that pressure right on this point of our hand. And the only way to get that grip is to hook your release on first, so we can kind of let go of the bow and set our hand into that bow. So what I like, I might go ahead and take this grip off and give us a little bit more visual.
Yeah.
Is
Get in there.
I want to actually come in and slide that hand right into that trough. And all my pressure is going to be right here, which is at the end of these two bones of your arm. So a lot of people, other thing they like to do is they try to get pressure up on the webbing, so which then wants to take that heel off that bow. And that's kind of like standing on your tiptoes. You're constantly trying to balance that wrist instead of letting it be a foot per se.
There it is, loose grip, loose fingers. So you can't grab the bow.
Well, you can,
If
but it's
it's-
going to feel funny trying to grab onto it.
it's
Once
hard
you
to
go to grab
grab it.
onto it, you start bringing that in.
You start bringing in tension and
So what we want to do is we want to come in with a release, push down,
let me get your whole hand. Okay, do that again. Come in with your
come
release.
in with my release.
So the bow is hanging from your release.
Yep. So I'm going to come in, push down on that heel, and come up. And I don't ever want to move that grip at that point. So once I draw that bow back, that hand is stuck right there. And those the fingers should be, there's a couple things. If I put my hand down to the side, see how my hand is kind of curled?
Yep.
Same thing. So if I come in with my grip, that hand is just curled. That's totally relaxed. We don't want to go open up. Anytime I open up, you can see my forearm instantly move. So shooting with an open grip is just as bad as shooting with a death grip. We're both activating muscles that we should in that forearm. So we're just going to come in. Another thing too is you should see your knuckles at an angle. If I get deep into that grip, you can see how they come straight up and down here
Yep. Yep.
instead of being at an angle.
You want them at
So I'm
that
going to
angle.
go ahead and let him, let Ben get in here, and he's been doing his grip wrong, which
So-
is typical.
According to you, what I've been doing is instead of, now if I understand it correctly, it's right into
in there.
here.
Yep. So
So-
you've been also breaking that wrist up into here instead of being down. All that pressure's gonna be right here, and you also turn this hand in a little bit. So go ahead and grab into just like you normally do. Hook your release on, put an arrow in it, and just do like you normally do.
The wrong way or trying to do it the
Yeah,
right way?
you're the wrong one.
So what I've been learning that I want to do that too.
So,
I don't know, I've been listening to you much, I'm having a hard time.
see how we're on that pad?
Mhm.
So what this hand wants to do is we want to slide it right to there.
So my biggest thing is I haven't kicked my,
What you've been doing, show them what he's
So he's
been
been
doing.
I've
doing
been
is
like
is
this.
right there.
Hang on. Sorry, guys.
You can see this part of his pad is on there. He's up into the throat, somewhat good. Just kind of do this. The other thing is if you look too at his knuckles are straight up and down too.
Yeah. So you're touching all the way through.
All the way through, which we're trying to balance this wrist instead of turning it into like our foot.
Yep.
You know, if you look at his feet we're a bone to bone to bone contact, and no muscles are engaged in your legs to hold you up.
Yep.
So basically, we're going to let this bow push to bone to bone to
here's
bone.
another thing you said that I was doing wrong too, is I've been down here
Down
too
lower.
far, and when a sweaty grip, it would
Starts
slide
to
up.
slide. So get that grip up there, and then heel, break that wrist down, push all that pressure right there. And go ahead and come right on up in there.
Even more.
Yep, just like that. Go ahead and draw that thing back. Feel that pressure on the bone?
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot different, isn't it, Ben?
Yeah, it's a lot different. Just lost a knock, I think.
Where'd you hit? Crushing arrow.
Going for that black dot. Let's try it again. All right, so let's see if we can do it correctly. Click it on,
Put the cam. There you go. That makes it a
cam
lot
and
easier.
crotch, twist,
Perfect. Right
get
there.
up high.
Come straight above your target.
What do you think?
Just a little
A little
bit.
more?
Yep. You want to come just slightly above your target, and what that's going to do is it's going to load this shoulder down. If we come down here and we draw, we push all this pressure into this. As
Right.
we come up, we can't get that shoulder into its socket. So we want to keep that shoulder down
Right.
into its socket and not let it come up on us.
Yeah, you'll see people scrunch their shoulder up
Mhm.
into their ear.
And that's a lot
And
of
then
it just
draw.
because of how they're setting up their shot. So good grip right there. Come straight above your target. There you go. And pull. Good.
I noticed.
We're not shooting ducks in the.
No,
How does that feel, man?
I like it. I can tell a difference. There's a big difference between feeling the bone. I can feel that bone versus before when it was all in my soft part of my hand. I wasn't feeling it as much. Because I've heard people. I've even heard you say that before on previous videos, podcast. How you need to feel that bone. And, the way I was doing it, there's no bone there.
No.
I'm like, what bone are they talking about? Bone they talking about? So right there.
And the big thing is a lot of people, like I say, they want to break this wrist this way. He still kind of wants to get this wrist in line instead of more this way into that bow.
Yeah.
That's gonna
People want
force.
to turn it sideways like they're holding a gun.
Well, they want to break it, this way, and that, like I say, that you're trying to balance. If we push on this, he's constantly trying to keep that from rolling around. Versus if we put it right here, he doesn't have to do anything to not let it do anything. So perfect. Good.
I think I need to focus on relaxing my hand through the draw.
Yeah, once you relax those fingers, now you notice the forearm stays relaxed. The aiming will float instead of shake.
That's nice. That bow just, it just kind of falls.
Yeah.
It's dead in your hand.
I got the draw.
You're gonna be famous now.
I'm a believer. I have been learned and schooled. Thank you.
You bet.
Okay, Gritty friends, I hope you enjoyed that podcast. If you did, please take a moment to leave us a review on iTunes, Podbean, or Stitcher. We love reading your reviews. And connect with us on social media if you're on there. Look us up on Facebook and Instagram, and take a moment to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can receive notifications when we upload new videos. We've got a sweet deal with Mountain Ops. You get 20% off on all Mountain Ops supplements, combo packs, and apparel when you type in the word gritty at checkout. If you're a hardcore elk hunter, or you want to be, go to the Elk 101 website online and check them out. Our friend Cory Jacobson is killing it with some of the best elk hunting information and entertainment on the web. All right, friends, let me leave you with one other quote from Theodore Roosevelt, who said, "It behooves every man to remember that the work of the critic is of altogether secondary importance, and that, in the end, progress is accomplished by the man who does things." We all have a choice. We can be people who do things, or people who criticize the work of others. It's pretty simple, really. Get out there and do your thing. Good luck on your hunts, and stay gritty.
This is Ty Stubblefield, and you're listening to The Gritty Bowman.
Gritty Bowman.